Hey everybody, welcome to the Growing with Fishes podcast. I'm Steve. And today we have Spectrum.
Yeah. Sorry, I was muted. My bad.
Do over.
Yeah. Oh, we always botch the openings to our shows.
And grow here.
That's what live is all about.
Yeah.
Real things happen.
Yeah.
And we have the gentlemen from Spectrum King today. We have Orr and Brendan, and they're here to talk to us about LEDs. We're really excited to have them. We had multiple failed attempts to do it. I lost power because of a ridiculousness living near the border, and then they had connection problems. So it's
some fun stuff. But yeah, determination won over in the end. We're here. You're there. All good.
Yeah, and then when you're too busy chasing your own tail, it's kind of hard getting on a call after you're so beat. But hey, we're here.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. And why don't you guys tell us about Spectrum King and a little bit about LEDs, as far as them over some of the other types of lights that are out there.
Well, in the simplest of terms, we started this off years ago as we all knew each other, and I've known Rami, Orr's brother, for like 9 years, and we used to, shall we say, spar vocally over what LEDs could and couldn't do, and we tried to get things happening then. I've known him all along.
He was a non-believer,
No, I wasn't. I was skeptical because at the point in time, the red and blue thing, and being the nerd that I am, I know that red and blue can only travel so far, and that they work better in conjunction with other colors. So when we came out with full spectrum light 3 years ago and really pushed it, everyone else in the industry thought we were jokers, clowns, and had no idea what we were talking about. And now all of a sudden, they all have full spectrum lights. I wonder why that is, or do you know why?
Tell me, Brendan.
I think because they work.
Yeah.
They figured out that our lights work, so they should probably copy them.
Why change what works? Natural sunlight.
Everyone stood, looking at NASA white papers on red and blue and blurple, if that's a color, but you guys know what I mean, I think. And
Yeah, for sure.
In theory, to grow vegetable starts in space, that's all you need. They didn't read the whole paper. They just read the first few pages where they talked about red and blue for chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B production. They never read into the fact that light bulbs work really well and produce really well, and they don't have that much red or blue in them. So maybe you need the other colors too. So we looked at the sun. We said, well, we know that works for sure and everything's in it. So why not just try to get as close to sunlight as we can with really intense light and let's see what happens. And well, the rest became clear to anyone who uses the lights. You mentioned earlier that you had seen them yourselves. You know that they're bright as F, and that's what plants love, intensity and spectrum.
Yeah, we're actually, it's funny you mentioned Brett's grow earlier. We're actually going to be doing a grow off between him and Scotty. A couple SK600s, and yeah, excited to see that.
I'm looking forward to the fireworks because I know Scotty can stir the pot well. It's going to be fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for those of you guys that don't know, I helped hang they have a SK600 that they gave to the dude from the Dude Grow show, and I helped hang it up for him, and I mean, I was just blown away by this thing. So
yeah, he's got a pair of them in there, and I wish he would post more videos because he's talented and his plants look awesome.
Yeah.
But it's cool that he saw with his own eyes, because in the beginning, Orr and I were speaking to Scotty and the dude, and we were like, try him. You don't believe? Here, try him. You tell me. All we ask is that, you get the conditions right, because a lot of growers and people my age, I hate to say it, I'm the old effer here, and really preconceived notions. This is how you grow. This is how you do it. The room has to be 73 degrees. Your humidity has to be like this, or you can get PM. And just like the Jungle Boys and other big growers, I'm really big on VPD. I've seen, plants just take off. And one of the old things we used to do when we wanted to kill, like if you had the broad mite infestation, is you'd get your room hot as hell. And that would usually get it hot and humid, and you'd kill off all the broad mites. So we did a test. We had a room full of live plants in mid-flower. We got the room up to over 115 degrees for 3.5 hours straight. The plants only went to half mast. They didn't quit. They didn't die. And if you've ever grown with bulbs and your room got over 85, 88 degrees, you know that they were cooking.
Granted, I was there with 65-degree water, just ready to go.
Just in case.
Loaded and ready. I like it.
Or is always logical and practical. You know, he has great ideas and we come up with cool stuff, but when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, hey, don't mess this up, Brendan. That's Orr telling me that.
Right on. So do you want to talk about like maybe
Okay.
a little bit of the difference between like achieving full spectrum
Sure.
through multiple diodes versus through a full spectrum
Yeah.
diode itself?
Yeah,
We
well,
actually
that's
had a
good point.
question. We had a
Yeah.
question from when on our. We actually have a Facebook group, and we asked for questions. And
Uh-huh.
one of the questions that they asked was, "What are the advantages of your style of LED over the ones that have different color arrays?" Which is, I guess,
Great.
same time.
Great for asking that, and I'm glad the guy pointed it out that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what full spectrum means is every color is in there, not just some. And there are people who put selective color diodes in and call their lights full spectrum. Well, if you can see a hole or a notch where there's no measurement of light on their graph chart, it is not full spectrum. Full spectrum implies every color is in there.
Well, it's also that people go with colored LEDs when that's kind of the wrong way to look at it. Colored LEDs are really inefficient. They're really low in lumens per watt.
Mhm.
So going with a white LED, which is the highest lumens per watt, again, white has all the colors in the spectrum. So why not go with white, which gives you intensity, which was what plants look for first.
They go for first, for sure.
And spectrum, second, white,
The proof is you take your double-ended bulb. Does it have the absolute full spectrum? No, but it's very intense. We know they work. When everyone else was like trying to fight with each other, LED company, do this, do that, we're like, we don't want to fight with LEDs we know that don't work. We want to go toe-to-toe with the bulb people and make them sweat. And we do, like our SK600, it uses 650 watts and goes toe-to-toe with an 1150 watt double-ended bulb fixture. Not just me saying this and hoping for miracles, plenty of people posting their results online showing it. And one of our proudest things is that people show what they get with our lights. We don't have to do that much anymore because in the beginning people thought we were crazy. They just show proof. That's all I ever ask anybody.
So again, going back to the question, that's why when you're going with the low lumen per watt LED, that's why you're only going to get penetration of 12 to maybe 18 inches at best.
Yeah, limited bandwidth or limited spectra. Red and blue, like Orr mentioned earlier, only travel so far and can only penetrate so much. In full spectrum bright white light with the intensity, the transporter of red and blue to the lower chloroplasts of plants is actually the green borderline yellow in the middle. So paradoxically, people kept saying for years that plants reflect green light. It is true. They reflect up to 15% of green light, and that's what we see with our eyes to point at the plants as being green. But the other 85% is doing us all favors, stimulating the lower chloroplasts. That's why we get better penetration deeper into the plant canopy than any other light source.
Yeah, if you guys haven't had a chance to check them out, you guys have some pretty good, sort of head-to-head grow-offs with different lights that you guys have done yourself on your YouTube channel, which I found very informative. And thank you guys for that, because I definitely learned a lot from those. And if any of our listeners haven't checked those out yet, definitely go check them out, because it definitely illustrates what he's talking about in terms of the depth of penetration of their lights versus a number of your competitors in different styles too, which I thought was very cool.
It's cool. There's so many ideas in industry and trying things this way and that way, and that's great because it'll make things move forward. But I'm really proud of what we've done, because we applied common sense and then looked at bulbs, looked at plants, looked at plant tissue, and said, well, what if we tried this? And there was a point, because we call ourselves the Four Horsemen that started this. The other two guys had an opinion, and Orr and I did not let go of what we knew was the shit. And we had arguments. We fight like brothers. It was terrible. It got loud. And then finally, the four of us built the light the way Orr and I wanted it to be. And that's when the real magic happened. The stacking, all the rest. We knew we had the secret sauce at that point.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. You guys are the pioneers on the white light for sure. We had a question from chat. It says, what's your most efficient light?
SK600. That you know of now. I said
Good. Well put. Well put.
Because as fate would have it, in the the next 6 months, we never stop trying to make things better, improving, and we have some new toys that will be out. You want to just tell them about the 140s?
Well, we'll have a whole department just bored if we stop creating stuff, so we can't have that happen. Plus, we'll
It's like a tough job.
Well, we figure there's always a way to make things better, and if you mess around with it enough, you're bound to figure it out. So we mess around with things a lot.
Yeah. We are, for those heard the rumors, we are coming out with a 140-watt version of the closet case and Mother's Little Helper in mid-May to end of May. And that's pretty much going to be about 15% brighter than its current
way more
model.
than 15.
Is it?
Oh yeah, it's way more than 15.
Yeah.
When I love it because I have commercial gardeners, and what we do is we build these toys, we play with them ourselves. Then we'll call on some of the big guys we know that we trust their opinions. We'll say, hey man, take this for a test drive and let me know what you think. And my favorite thing was 2 days later, I go in the office because Or's like a freak of nature, gets up way too early every day. And he gets in the office and I walk in, he has this just big old Cheshire cat grin on his face. I'm like, what? What happened? Did you get some last night? What's going on? And he goes, no, dude, Cody. And I go, what'd he say? He goes, he first thing out of his mouth was, give me more of these lights. Then we knew we had it right. Because for 140 watts, when you see how bright these little efforts are, to take over your small, low ceiling grows and your.
Oh, it was 30% brighter. That's what it was. 35% brighter. Yeah, that's what it was.
It's we listen to what people ask for, and because we make our own products, with Rami, we'll task him with something, and he's kind of head nerd, and I'm just a associate nonstop. Let's make it better nerd. And Or's like Captain Practical. Hey, dude, do this and that. Duh. And they treat us like we're dumb sometimes, but a lot actually. And then
so if your light's producing that, is as bright as you say it is, then it, obviously if it's not going to light in terms of your energy consumption, so I would assume it's very cool light as well. Is that?
Yeah, one of the things that we really took. Here's something I'll say that maybe get me yelled at later, but what really drives me nuts about Lux, Lumen, Par is they all measure the same 400 to 700 nanometers, and that reason it was targeted like that because that's convenient for quantum sensing manufacturers and for light bulbs to make themselves look good. Plants use more like the McCree curve, which is more like 350, even a little lower than that, up to 780, and even a little higher. And when you take all of that in, once you're passing 780, it's pretty much all infrared heat. Now, on anyone's chart, we can't see that, but that's what bulbs do. That the whole reason we have to keep our rooms cooler is because of that infrared light we can't even see. So we just took that out of the equation. So even though the light's super bright, super intense, it doesn't radiate heat down on your plant canopy. And that's the biggest win, because just like outdoor plants now, your room could be 85 degrees and the plants don't care.
Yeah, for those types of lights, for the 100-watt series, if you're using it in a 4x4 tent, in a basement or in a house, whatnot, all you really need, and overkill really, it's a 6-inch oscillating fan. That's it.
That's great.
Do you guys measure? So would you guys measure PPFD as a better?
I'm so glad you. I'm so glad
you want to talk about that.
I'm so glad you brought that up because we've been asking for a while for par grids for all of our lights. We just said screw it. We bought one ourselves, and it's coming in Monday, and we're gonna have par grids for all of our lights, and that's gonna be posted.
What drove me nuts is when we contacted every lighting testing facility in North America and Europe. We got carried away because we're like, somebody has to actually do this, because they all measure something, right? What are they measuring? And their spheres are measuring. They all measure lumens. Nobody actually measures in real labs that are supposed to tell us what our products do and anyone else's products do. None of them actually measure par. They do mathematical extrapolations based on formulas. And humans and formulas don't always go so well. So you see these numbers one time, and one of the guys got back to me. I'll leave the lab name out because they actually they're redoing their whole facility when I proved them wrong. They thought they had the right thing going, and they were giving out numbers. And I went, hold on a minute, man. There's no way in hell this is accurate. And I'm not just saying that for my lights, but even these guys who I don't like, their lights are better than that too. So something's up with this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much exaggerating the wattage, and it was making all the units inefficient.
Yep.
And
So you guys
that's
wanna-
only one part of it, but yeah, and then I found out that some quantum sensors that people use in their meters have an embellished curve spike at 555, which is, you know, the more of an orange yellow peak, which bulbs have. So bulbs would look to appear to have better numbers. And where we went through all this nerdiness, I'm kind of OCD that way. I always want to get it right. One day I just said, you know, what do your plants say? Because the only thing that doesn't lie are plants. And that's when we came up with our slogan, that plants don't lie, people do. What do your plants say? Because you send it to 3 different labs and get 3 different readings. But, you know,
Yep.
look at my garden, look at your garden. What is it, happy or not? That's the simplest answer I have for the geek side of it, because the meters aren't accurate.
So do you want to explain to people a little bit about, you know, which method or which methods you think is a better way of testing, like such as PPFD, or maybe explain that a little bit for people that don't know? PPFD is kind of the best way to rate, unless you guys disagree. The best way to rate.
I would say it's a better way, because your photon density per square meter, it gives you an actual measurable space, not just a spot. You know, PPF, you know, your par reading. A lot of guys will take their reading really close to like dead center and say, this is our par output, when we measure from where their plants would actually be. Even in the beginning, when other guys were taking their bulbs in test chambers saying they had 2,100 UMOLs, that your plant will never see. Because,
well, yeah, some of the lighting companies out there cheat. They, in fact, I know for, I know, what's it? I think it's Mars has those where they're angled at a 45-degree angle so that all 3 panels are hitting that
spot,
that sensor spot. Yeah. Yep. And that's cheating. It's not actually helping the plant at all.
And then there's another company, I'll leave their name out, but they put super narrow optics on their diodes.
Oh, shit.
And, you know, it was like friggin' photon torpedo colored flashlights, you know, pointing dots like a disco ball at the ground. And I'm going, well, if they don't even blend, they're so narrow beam they don't even blend. This guy's preaching these crazy numbers.
Yep.
And Rami and I looked at that and went, wait a minute. And Nora goes, this guy's got narrow band optics. This is crap. I mean, and
yep.
He was starting a little spar with us about 1.5 years ago. And we said, hey man, put up or shut up. We'll put our lights up, bring yours, let's do it. You know, and then that was the end of that discussion. He never showed up, never talked about it again.
I know Fish Ganja Guy will be joining us in about 10 minutes. He has a thing with, you know, real life until 10 more minutes. So he'll be joining us to talk about the Black Dog versus Spectrum King. I know the Spectrum King is definitely just destroying the Black Dog right now. And his side by side.
A couple years ago, we were doing a trade show and we were setting up, and Orr and I left the booth for like 10 minutes to grab a snack and come back. We came back and there was these 2 tall dudes. And just to give you a little perspective, I'm 6'1", and these guys were much taller than me.
I think I know the 2 dudes you're talking about.
They're going through the stuff in our booth. They're going through our lights, and so me being me, at 100 feet away, I put on the theater voice to go, how you doing? Can I help you with anything? And they're saying, these aren't grow lights. And I said, why? They said, you put plants under them and they grow plants really well. Doesn't that make it a grow light? No, these are high bays. You can't use these as grow lights. And I said, well, when I do use them with grow lights, how about I put them on camera versus your grow lights, and let's see what happens. And that started a bit of a war at that point, because Rami pushed it further than me. But then flash forward to November of last year at the show in Vegas, and our booth happened to be across the aisle from theirs. That's just how the people put us in the show. And they have this light which uses 1,015 watts, weighs 53 pounds, and sounds like a military jet taking off, that was on full blast. And you couldn't tell it was on, because our SK600 was on across the aisle. And since then, they've been nice to us. But, you know, I'm all for people pushing. If they come out with something kick-ass, it'll just make us work harder. I'm cool with that. I love it. I love to see good shit going forward. I'm tired of the segmentation and the finger pointing. Let's bring the whole thing up.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what I love about you guys. You guys are always ready to throw down and always sending out, you know, different things for people to do side by sides. You guys really, more than anyone else in the market, really put your money where their mouth is, and that's why you guys have been successful. I mean, that's why I got a chance to see one of your lights. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, Rami, a competitor at a trade show, we were in Spain at Cannabis, and this other dude came over, and Rami said, dude, this is what you need to do to fix your light. He just told the dude flat out because he's like, bro, we're all in this thing, man. You know, let's move it forward.
Think about it.
Yep.
There's about 250 to 400,000 bulbs disposed every single month.
That's just here. That's just the United States. I think that might even be just count. I mean, it's ridiculous, but yeah.
Again, and how many of those bulbs are disposed responsibly?
We're gonna go with like 10% maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
So
I want to go back to something that you said too a couple minutes ago, which is that they were the company was exaggerating the amount of watts that are consumed by a plant, and that's kind of a theme that I find with LEDs a lot. And maybe you guys can talk about, you know, maybe even your struggles with talking with people that you want to convert over, but you know, they've read about somebody who bought some cheap light that, you know, it was a 600 watt, but really it only you know, consumes less than 300 watts. And then calculates their watts per square foot based on a lie, and then goes around and tells everybody that LEDs don't work. So you guys want to, you know, maybe share a little of your perspective on that?
Sure, man. There's a couple of companies that manufacture in China. The brands, I mean, if you look at you see the same body with a different color. I mean, there's a few brands that manufacture in the same plant over in Shenzhen, which, by the way, Rami's actually been inside the factory because our commercial lighting side, street lights and things he has made over there sometimes. And they're claiming that at one point they were selling their products as 1,000 LED watts. And I'm like, what is an LED watt? We always base it, here's what my fixture actually consumes. Our lights, what we publish is what they actually consume from a kilowatt meter at the wall, verified by UL certification and testing. And they're saying it's 1,000 LED watts, but only uses 575 watts. So then it's a 575 watt fixture.
It's because they say it's an equivalent of 1,000 watt. So that's pretty much what it is. But it really
they'll say that like they have 5 watt diodes.
Right.
There are X number of them, and they just multiply the number of diodes by 5 watts, even though they power them at less than 2.5.
Correct.
So
yes,
you know, it's definitely misleading to consumers, and then also I think want to advertise what the light actually consumes, right? Because if it doesn't consume it, it doesn't become light, and therefore it doesn't matter. So what you drive it at is what really matters, and so
but also
I find that difficult when talking and trying to convert somebody over from, or at least even just talk to them about LED when comparing it to like HPS, for instance. They latch on to those of people that weren't successful with it, and really they were just, you know, either exaggerating in order to make, you know, I guess the company selling it is exaggerating it to make sales, and the person that bought the light is talking about how LEDs are crap because then they don't have to talk about how they bought a cheap light. So it's, you know, it's sort of a, you know, catch-22 to where, you know, I just think people need to be careful when you're looking at LED is, you know, what kind of LED are you actually looking at? You're not looking at a single bulb.
Sure.
You're looking at, you know, a variety of different bulbs linked together, and they can be linked together in numerous ways.
Yes.
And it can be difficult to compare straight across.
And also your raw materials. I mean, yes, a lot of companies actually make diodes, but if I take a 1 watt, a 2 watt, or 5 watt, or a 10 watt diode from companies A, B, and C, and I turn them all on, they're not going to be the same amount of light coming out of them, nor the same color light, nor the same duration or lifespan of those diodes. And one of the things that got us in the beginning was, you know, we still putz around with other products just because we want to know if we're still doing the right thing. And there's a drastic difference in output of diodes. So you can say, I've got 205 watt diodes, 1,000 watt equivalent, but you're driving it at 60%, so you're actually using 600 watts. But the fixture only gives off, you know, 25,000 lumens, which is crap for 600 watts. But they can market it as being, you know, equivalent of 1,000 watts, only using 600 watts, but it's what it gives off that counts. That's why we come back to every meter you want to use, every aspect ratio, mathematical extrapolation formula, what does it do to plants? Put a light over plants, and that's where we always did, because we're gardeners who happen to make grow lights. If it doesn't make plants happy, we're not going to put it out. That's just dumb.
Yeah, you know, again, that anyone that's like a do-it-yourself kind of guy, you know, you want to, again, look for a white LED, you know, we definitely recommend Cree, you know, not only because we're branding partners with them, they have the highest junction temperature of any LED manufacturer in the world.
Break down what that means for the junction temperature. So,
you know, LEDs, you know, usually have a junction temperature of around like 90 degrees Celsius before they start to degrade. You know, degrade meaning, you know, they start to fall off and you're not going to get the same amount of light as when you first got it. Cree LEDs, at least the ones that we use, can go up to 105 degrees C. So that's a 15-degree difference.
Celsius too, which is
yeah,
more.
Celsius. So it's very, very drastic, especially when you're talking about a light that has a tight array and it's producing, you know, 80,000+ lumens. That's a lot of, you know, heat inside over there. That's you know,
and that comes down to the raw materials you put it on.
Exactly. That's why, again, we use our board is copper plate is copper gold plated front and back. Because
that transmits heat away and electricity through better than an aluminum board, which most other people use a lightweight aluminum board.
Gold is the best conductor.
Yeah. But for geek speak, it's R factor, means resistance factor. Most people have a board with resistance of 1, which means it works. I'll leave it at that, but it's not going to last you a long time, and it's definitely not going to live long because it's going to stay hotter consistently and conduct current less efficiently than a higher R factor board. It's going to
fail over time.
Right. So when we learned that, and you know, Rami already knew it, and he punched it in our heads after enough time. So it's glued, but we've seen the difference. In our own torture tests, we put things to the ringer, and the reason we use that, some guys say that big hunking metal thing. Well, we don't want any moving parts. I don't want a fan sucking goo in and making it gumming up and quitting over time. Our lights are IP65 rated, which means you could blast it with a hose when it's turned on, and it's not going to hurt it. And more importantly, that enough metal that's there, it never gets too hot.
You can sulfur burn with our lights.
Yeah, because they're sealed.
That's amazing. Do you guys want to talk about the different lights that you guys have available? And then I have a couple of questions from chat we'll get to after that.
Okay. Well, from the bottom up, we have the MLH and CC, Mother's Little Helper, and Closet Case, the 100-watt lights. Our Closet Case, you know, it was called Closet Case because we had a lot of guys and college students and people going in small spaces, a lot of Europeans, you know, who they just grow a few plants for themselves in a closet. So we made a light that works perfectly for a closet. And if you've seen any of the videos on YouTube, particularly, what's that dude did the 3?
Oh, well, I'm not going to say his name.
He's on his screen.
Let's call him Mondo. Let's call him Mondo.
Yeah, Mondo, but Smoking Doug.
Oh, yeah.
And up, dude. I mean, I didn't even think. And granted, I love our lights. Don't get me wrong. We use them, but I never took the time.
Like 336 grams.
He got 336 grams. So he got 168 grams.
Feel free to mention his channel or whatever. Like, you're more than welcome to. I mean,
it's on YouTube. It's SMOKINDUG. Smoking Doug on YouTube. He's got tons of videos showing our lights in action. He does the closet cases, but I mean, other guys were claiming I get a gram per watt, and Doug calls me, he goes, dude, check out my videos. I'm like, okay. He got 1.68 grams per watt with 100-watt closet cases.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And he's not like he's a mad scientist playing with bottles and mixing up special formulas. He just uses regular bottle feed regime and just, you know, got his environmental conditions right. And when I talked to him about that, I'm like, dude, let it get hot, let it get humid. Don't worry about it. That's what they want. I said, if you were in Jamaica and you see the plants going outside, you think they look upset? He goes, no. I go, that's exactly what they want.
You know, you know, Brendan, I'm glad you brought that up. That's one thing with LEDs that a lot of people don't know, and there's a big misconception going around. You can lose a race in a Ferrari. You have to learn how to drive the car first. I mean, I use that slogan all the time. You know, we're car guys. It's what comes natural to us. Look at plants in Hawaii, hot and humid, right?
Going off too.
Exactly. So when you look at lights in a grow room, what does an HPS produce? A lot of heat. So what are you doing to combat that heat? You're having that AC always on, so you're trying to get that canopy temp at around 74 degrees, 76 degrees at most, right? So when you go to LED, it's a more efficient light source. You're not having that infrared, which HPS and Gavita bulbs have a crap ton of. Mm-hmm. So once you switch light source, let's say our sun, for example, if we switch to a more efficient sun, we're going to feel the effects here on Earth. It's going to be freezing. Mm-hmm. So in your grow room, boost up the temps. Run your flower temps at 86.
You know, and one of the things that I was glad when Jungle Boys published their articles and started talking about VPD, because people, you know, they already thought we were crazy because we grow with LEDs, and they thought we were crazy. We're talking about running your rooms hot and humid. They're like, no way, that's going to kill everything. You're going to have mold, you're going to mildew.
Do you want to touch more on VPD? We haven't actually had anyone really talk about that had any, like, we've mentioned it, but we've never had anyone that had a lot of knowledge, and I'd love for you to explain that a little bit to the listeners.
Okay, VPD is vapor pressure deficit. In a nutshell, hotter air can hold more moisture. So if you look at the chart, and I mean, I wish I had it in front of me, but basically, I look at the conditions of where most cannabis strains come from. And a large portion of them are more equatorial, you know, are within, you know, 10, 20 degrees of the equator, so that they're from hot and humid environments. So because we emulated the sun, and then we remove the excess IR that bulbs have, your indoor plants will grow more like outdoor plants. And you give them their natural environment, which is most places hot and humid for cannabis growth. Think of Hawaii. I mean, back in the day, the original strain names told you everything. Colombian Gold, Panama Red, Maui Wowie, Thai Stick. They were all jungle plants, you know? Once we got the vapor pressure deficit chart and you look at it and you say, well, 85 degrees, you should have 75, 80% humidity. And that's actually in balance. Some people are going to say, you're crazy, you're going to get mold, you're going to get mildew. The exact opposite. When your temperature and humidity is in balance, be it at 70 degrees or at 85 degrees, those things are not going to happen. All you need is airflow in the room, moving the air around, because anywhere stagnant air is bad for anything anyway. Just like stagnant water is bad for anything.
It's like you're creating a trifecta. You're creating force on the plant's on leaf surface.
Right, and they get stronger and they grow like wildfire. It's really fun to watch. We have a test R&D center with a new system we're playing with, and the AC quit today. And his brother went in there like a madman, like turning fans, and I'm like, leave it, let it get hot and humid. Don't worry, just leave it. They're gonna be fine. It's too hot, it's too humid. I go, Rami, because Rami's old school. He's still, you know, he's been growing from back in the day, but he's like, dude, it's gonna get too hot. It's gonna do this. I said, just leave it alone. Plants are totally fine. They could care less. They're just waiting for it, you know, waiting for the feed and everything to happen to keep them going. When you're in balance, and if you look at the chart, and if you don't have a link, I can send it to you tomorrow. There's a sweet spot, and it's indicated in gold boxes. And when you're in just outside of the sweet spot, it's in white, which is borderline bad. And then when you're in the blue off either side, you're either too hot, too dry, too cold, too wet, is when bad things happen. And a lot of people can't wrap their head around it. But essentially, the hotter your air, the more moisture it can hold, so it stays in balance. The cooler your air, the less moisture it can hold. So if you're hot and dry or cold and wet, that's when the plant releases stress pheromones and calls insects or gets mold spores, because some plants are systemically susceptible to mold or mildew. They just need the right conditions. The downside is a lot of males, a lot of guys that grow will never admit that they didn't get their conditions right. They're going to blame the nutrients, the lights, the whatever, you know.
A lot of males, you said?
Oh yeah, a lot of guys, because chicks, I mean, when I first started telling women about this and gardening things, and I said, you ever grown orchids? Yeah, well, hot and humid, there you go, magic.
You know, you have to make the stomata sweat. If you don't make the stomata sweat, the plant's not going to transpire, not going to, you know, it's not going to grow.
Essentially,
yeah.
And your
But if your plant gets powdery mildew, can't you just put some Eagle 20 on there or something like that?
Oh yeah, spray it all over. At the end, at week 5 too. Week 5.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Week 8. Week 8.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, you should go to Eagle 20 and flush. Yeah, it's just no.
Just no. We're being facetious. Do not do that.
No, please, nobody. Just never. I mean, it's funny as hell because you know it's exactly what not to do. Do not.
Please. Sponsored by Guardian.
Yeah, Guardian works great. You know,
sponsored by Guardian.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And if your voice changes after your harvest, no reason. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Don't mind the cyanide in the concentrate you just smoked.
Yeah, but that's what I'm liking now. That there's a lot more organic solutions to that, and a lot more common sense, practical things that you can do to not get those problems in the first place. And VPD plays a big part in that. If your room's in balance, your environmental conditions in balance, your plants are less susceptible to pests and pathogens. So you don't have to treat them with much stuff.
Just remember, no Eagle 20.
Yes. But
I don't know if you guys saw today, and we'll talk about this later in the show, but California released their list of pesticides that are not allowed. They don't have an approved list. They have you're not allowed to use these lists, which makes even less sense.
Well,
approved list makes a lot of sense.
Work with cannabis rules is trying to figure it out, and they have people in power who know nothing about it, who are trying to find out what's supposed to happen.
Yep.
Basically, so they could get PhDs from UC Davis, which are in forefront of plant science, but they're not in forefront of cannabis plant science yet. And then there's knuckleheads in this industry that have been around forever. I'm thinking, even Ed Rosenthal could teach a few things, to a PhD professor on cannabis, and
absolutely.
Jay Kitchen, who writes books and really cool stuff, a dude from New York City who's up in Seattle now, I think, he writes really cool stuff about the plant. I know some guys that have been written up in High Times that I know, and now they've come around to the new way of doing things, but it was really hard to get them to understand. I don't believe in PGRs. Why? Because read the label, not meant for anything consumed by humans or animals. Then why would you put that on your plants? Because you get fatter buds? Yeah, and cancer. I don't want that. So, yeah.
The other thing is what are your thoughts on, since you mentioned PGRs, for people that don't know, it's plant growth hormones, or plant growth regulators, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on organic plant growth regulators, such as phytocyanin or some of the lactobacillus ferments that are out there?
Aren't there some in kelp too?
Kelp actually has a little bit.
From kelp, yes, there's a good. Kelp is really interesting because your genotype phenotype expression can be totally different if you hit it with kelp at a certain spot in time. Those aren't carcinogens. They're naturally occurring chemicals. Granted, kelp and marijuana rarely, if ever, meet in the field. So it's a strange marriage, but it's not an unhealthy one. So
it is seaweed. What's that? It is seaweed. So
no, it's seaweed. It's it's still safe for human consumption. You could go in the ocean, yank a strand of seaweed and eat it. It might be a bit too salty for you, or really make you feel weird, but it's not going to hurt you. The other chemical ones, the paclobutrazol, etc., that people were using for years, it's a known carcinogen. And then there were guys selling it under the counter, and then they were selling it at the back door, then they were ordering it from states that didn't figure it out yet, And if you've been around the plant for a while, you kind of get tuned toward it. And I'm going to point it at my proboscis, because this thing's pretty accurate. But this guy here, you crack a jar that's with the wrong stuff in your thing, and it's like, close it, no. He's got a very accurate nose, and mine's pretty sensitive. You get tuned to the smelling those things, and it's just not right.
Even we were doing like a little cannabis cup with Remo. He brought like 23 different strains to our office.
Oh God, that was a rough day.
Immediately I smelled the mold in one. No one smelt it. I do have the biggest nose in the office.
But most accurate. I was talking both sides. But the funny part was, he opened the jar, and Remo wasn't sure for a second, or said, no, it's got mold in it. And he's like, no, it doesn't. And Remo goes, let's take a look. He cracked the bud open, and sure as, in the middle, there it was. Of 1 second, if the jar was open 1 second, or said, that's got mold, like Rain Man, just blurting it out Tourette syndrome style.
It's even easier when you're smelling pounds.
Yeah.
Oh God, if you walk into a room,
it smells like a Foot Locker, or like a high school locker room.
Oh. I remember back in the day, of a dude saying, I got this killer weed, and he brought the bag, and he cracked the bag open. I'm like, get the out of here with that. No, thank you. Those aren't trichomes. When you flick it and a cloud comes off, that's not trichomes.
So you guys, do you guys want to talk a little bit about, we actually had a question in chat about which of your lights is best for clones and raising smaller plants. Do you want to talk about the closet case and the Mother's Little Helper as far as what they're good for, and then maybe touch on the SK600 as well?
Okay, the Mother's Little Helper, as its name implies, was initially meant to maintain mother plants. It's also for your nursery, cuttings, popping seeds, vegetative state plants. The closet case and the Mother's Little Helper have the same body, but not the same intent. The closet case is meant for your smaller grows, for smaller plants that you're going to flower from seed to harvest. So, you know, you cover a little 2.5 by 2.5 area, maybe 3, you know, maybe if that 3 feet tall, preferably less, you can grow your own medicine, do it yourself, have fun with it, and have a healthy little crop. Some guys have done a lot better with them, but, you know, if you have the time and space, you know, people can get pretty inventive. So the Mother's Little Helper is a veg light. It's more like the midday sun, and that's when plants veg more, not flower more. Some people don't grab that one yet, but when the sun first comes up and when the sun sets, the first few hours there are when at the angle of incidence, the atmosphere, it triggers the plant to wake up and start flowering, and it also triggers to go to sleep at the end of the day. Plants are flowering more between 7 a.m. and 11 a.m. and then like 1:30 to 2 p.m. to 6, 7 p.m. at night. They're flowering in those times predominantly, and they're vegging right smack in the middle. So you have a 5,000 Kelvin, which is more like the midday sun, on your Mother's Little Helper, and your closet case spectrum is more closely linked to our bigger lights, the 400 plus and the SK600, just for flowering, you know, smaller plants.
You know, the Mother's Little Helper, it's 5,000 Kelvin, has a lot of blues and it has a lot of greens. I mean, you do see it as like a whitish, bluish tinged light, but what's inside is a lot of greens, which in conjunction with blues promotes tighter node spacing and thicker stalks. So that's again why 5,000 Kelvin. 5,000 Kelvin and 5,500 Kelvin are really the ideal spectrums, but 5,000 Kelvin is what you'll find on the market today. That's pretty available.
Even if you're building your own light, you know, if you want to specific purpose it. I mean, if you want a Swiss Army knife that can do the whole run from start to finish, you want to be a lower Kelvin temperature than that. But what we did is pick lights that, the transition from light to light won't be a massive shock to your plants. Like you're taking a metal halide bulb that's 6,500 Kelvin or higher and then slapping under an HPS, which is like 2,700 Kelvin. The shock and transition stress can really freak the plant out. When you give them a less of a transition and more intensity, the plants stack, they're thicker, they're stronger, and it's just an easier transition. The Mother's Little Helper is definitely your little veg light of doom, the 140 watt version. Sorry, I do stutter. The MLH 140 is just a step up for someone who wants to veg a little bigger or a little more aggressively. Yeah. Like the Closet Case 140 is coming out, same thing. You can flower up to a 3x3 area from seed to harvest with one light and only 140 actual watts drawn from the wall, not creative math watts.
Yeah, you know, there's like certain types of light, you know, even for chickens, you know, if you're farming, if you're growing chickens, you know, their blue and green light promotes muscle growth and intakes of higher protein. Whereas, you know, if you use the wrong type of red light, you know, for when you want the chickens to mate, you know, then they'll start eating each other, start cannibalizing each other because it's the wrong spectrum of red. It'll make them psycho.
Hear that? We can start a chicken riot if we want to.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of science when it goes to lighting, but it's pretty simple. You know.
We had another question from chat, which was, where is it? Are you guys using spheres to measure like some of the other lighting companies?
What we did a few times now. This is when I told you earlier, but I was really frustrated with what labs actually send back to us because we bought a lot of other people's fixtures and we sent them off to the lab to get tested. We got things back, and for example, when you send a light bulb to the lab, it's measuring 360 degrees because the bulb throws light 360 degrees. So they're taking the surface area of the sphere in their mathematical equation and going, it's hitting with this much, therefore this much area, this much intensity equals the bulb does this. Well, the problem with an LED, which doesn't throw 360 degrees, but depending on what the manufacturer is and what they've done to it, anywhere from 140 to narrow optics, a lot tighter, but they're using the whole sphere to measure and dividing it by, so making the LED look like it doesn't perform well because it doesn't hit all 360 degrees of the sphere. Until they get the test right, they actually measure PAR and PPFD, and they actually measure where the light goes. Then we'll have a more fair system. But right now, the labs haven't got to that point. you take 650 watts of our SK600, you put live plants under it, you put in the next room a 1,000 watt or 1,150 watt double-ended bulb fixture, and you see that they're growing both really well and very similar. Yet if you put them in a sphere, you're going to get different numbers because they're still going to measure the whole sphere, that the LED doesn't touch half of it, only touches less than half of the bottom of it. So as far as math goes, it can make the LED fixture look bad, but in reality, under plants and with a meter directly under it, it tells a totally different story.
Thanks for clearing that up. We had another question. How long will Spectrum King lights run until they need to be serviced or replaced?
Well, if you keep your environmental conditions in check and don't have your place over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, it most likely it'd be something like 7 years before you noticed any difference in light output on the big boys. The 100 watt lights have a 3-year warranty, which is, they'll go years longer than that. If you keep, we've had one on for over a year straight, right here, that it's still fine. There's no difference. The output's exactly the same. It's technically speaking, they have a 5-year warranty in the big lights, and unless you drop it or you have a electrical storm or like a power blowout or disruptive service, that's the only time we have things happen. It's a light bulb degrades from the second you turn it on. Most commercial gardeners that grow with double-ended bulbs or single-ended bulbs replace them at least twice a year. Some double-ended guys replace their bulb once a year, and they don't replace their reflective insert. But if you didn't read their manual when they bought that light, that insert goes bad and is supposed to be replaced every year with the bulb, or you get less reflectivity and less actual plant light on your canopy. That much money you spend on replacing those parts, at the end of the day, the LED is actually significantly cheaper to own and operate, even though it costs more upfront.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, going back to the warranties, we offer a 2-part warranty, 5-year on anything mechanical for us, again, for our big boys, and then 3-year for optical. So we guarantee 90% output for 3 years.
Or better, yeah. So, if you have a light bulb, after 3 months, you're already below 90% output. We're giving you 3 years guaranteed, at least 90% or better output. And our stress tests in the LM79 and LM80 data, which is third-party laboratory confirmed data, shows it to be most likely like 6.7 to 7.4 years before an actual noticeable difference to the human eye would take place.
Hey, I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Figured this was the first opportunity I had to jump in. Take it on the lights for a second. Something you brought up earlier that I just wanted to follow up on. You said that depending on when you dose the any kelp or seaweed, it could have a difference on, or make a difference on the phenotypic expression. In your experience, what have you noticed as far as dosing times and what you've seen changed?
Well, I noticed plants that were squatter and more bush-like that were dosed a couple times earlier on in their development than plants that were dosed later or were not dosed at all. And it was the same, literally like clones from the same plant that were veg, the same environment, same media, same nutrients, just treated differently, intentionally or otherwise. And you get plant, it looks like almost like a different strain if you hit them at the right time.
Just like a steady dose, or just hit them hard with it? How would you recommend?
I don't use, seaweed in that way. I use it, well, in teas and things, I suppose, so I'm still getting some of those phytohormones. But
yeah, same.
Yeah, it's as far as an individual product to use, I know people that use that product that way. I personally don't. I just happen to witness in other gardens that I've been in and talk to friends that are obsessed with finding their own secret sauce. So they're trying it on, tray 1, not tray 2. They're trying it on, this strain, not that strain type of thing. And if you want tighter node spacing, give them a better light source. That sounds silly to you, but if you take Skywalker OG that's growing underneath an HPS bulb, your node spacing could be 6, 7 inches apart. You take that same strain, cuts from the same mother plant, put them under LEDs, and the plant will be at harvest, it'll be 1.5 foot shorter than the HPS plant, and it'll have more buds on it, and they'll be closer together. Getting the right light source of the plant can have the same effect as those phytohormones.
Groovy. Thank you so much.
We had another question from chat. How does your Spectrum King lights measure on a scale of CRI?
Oh, that's a good one. CRI, color rendering index. What that is the quality of light to the human eye to see more detail. We generally have CRI, 80 min, 90 min, but what that means is sunlight, for example, on a good summer day is like a CRI of 97, 98. It's going to change. The distance from the light fixture can make it change a little bit, but we have lights that generally get 90 or better.
Yeah, I mean, depending on where you measure it, because the spectrum does change a little bit the farther you go from the light source or at what angle you point it at. So generally we measure between 87 to around 96.
Awesome. We had, do you guys want to talk about, hold on one second. I have a list of stuff here. Let me pull it up. The difference in both power usage and heat output between LED and some of the other options on the market, and how that can definitely save you as far as running costs for people that are thinking about starting a grow room or even a commercial grow, why the LEDs are kind of a much more of an advantage.
Well, with the cost of the pound going down, I mean, I don't know. Last time I sold the pound for over here to a dispensary, it was for like 1900, and with it just going down and down and down, and your cost to run your operation is still the same. Running your HPS bulbs, you're not going to be making anything. In fact, you're going to be losing money at some point. And why induce more stress into your life? More stress into your life is more stress to your garden. So that's again why people are starting to make that switch to LED, and they're starting to really realize that.
On a commercial scale, particularly in large facilities, we are knocking 60 to 70% off their power bill every month, combined, everything combined. When you think of running with bulbs, a lot of guys who still use hoods, they have inline fans, they have air conditioners, that there's a lot more power being used to keep that facility going. With LEDs, you don't need as many inline fans. We're using a lot less power, giving you a lot more light with less watts. And you can run your rooms warmer because we're not having the infrared, which heats the plant canopy up. So that results in significantly less reduced tonnage in AC as well. So if you can knock that much off your power bill, the lights pay you back in a short period of time at a large scale, even on a small scale. If you're paying, like in LA, if you're paying 24 cents a kilowatt hour, you buy one of our lights, it's already paid you back within the first year, and then it's just for the years to come, you got nothing to do other than smile at your power bill.
Yeah, and then when you're talking about LED versus LED, again, it's about white light versus blue and red light, and then when you go into the actual design of the heatsink, there's a very big difference. For instance, none of our heat sinks, none of our fixtures have any fans. There's 0 moving parts. We're strong believers in a sealed light.
The IP65 rated sealed light means it's absolutely silent. It's such a change when you swap over from all that, I have friends that knew me for years that had no idea what color eyes I had because they'd never seen them, because I was always squinting because I was working under bulbs, and the headaches and the migraines I got from the buzzing and the ballast clicking noise, all that stuff, it's just gone. It's just sheer quiet, and the oscillating fans in the garden, just a little, that's it. So it's a huge change.
It's also good because fewer moving parts, fewer fail points.
Right, no points of failure, and that's the biggest point why Rami, when we were talking at the beginning, we were so big on it. We're like, listen, if I put this damn thing up, I don't want to have to worry about a computer fan that's not supposed to be in a wet and humid environment, sucking in bugs, whatever, or quitting and starting the thing on fire, or whatever, or PM, yeah. So we went for IP65, which means it's certified safe for a wet and humid environment, which gardens are. You can wash it, you spray it with water. You can
wash it with hydrogen peroxide if you wanted to.
Yeah. I got guys they're foliar bombers are so happy with our lights, they actually spray them just because they feel like it's funny, just because they know nothing's going to happen. Because back in the day, if you've ever had a hood blow up on you and have shatter, you know what I mean? It's like that glass shower is not fun.
I had a coworker of mine drop a 400 watt halide that he just shattered because he splashed the bulb when I used to work on fish tanks into a reef tank
Sure.
with my arms in the thing, and it literally threw me out of the tank. Like it physically threw me about 3 or 4 feet.
It launched you like a rocket, an electric
Yeah,
launch.
it literally launched me out of the fish. I had my arms in the fish tank and literally launched me out of the fish tank. It was ridiculous. So been there, done that one.
I'm sorry you went through that, but at least you're sure to tell the story.
Right? I can only be thankful for that.
Yeah, you know,
Can I get a question real quick?
Or just said
It takes less than 1 ounce to kill you. It just has to hit you in the right spot.
Yep.
I guess maybe your part.
Don't mind if I ask a question real quick, guys?
Sure, fire away.
Absolutely.
Basically, all I wanted to do was allow you guys to set the record straight. One thing that I've seen while researching what LED lights to buy and just skimming through Amazon, as probably most people do, you find these little LED lights manufacturers that are probably made at the same company in China that you guys were talking about earlier.
Yes.
That advertise that infrared light is actually helpful for your plant. So are you guys saying that infrared light is completely just extra and you don't want it?
No, I'm saying just like UV, a small dose of IR and UV stimulate the plant's immune system to produce more secondary metabolites, aka trichomes and THC. But too much is bad. Just like anything, moderation. A healthy dose works.
Okay, cool.
You know?
Yeah, you do want IR again. Just
you want to stimulate. Yeah.
If you look at a health,
you just don't want too much.
Correct.
Look at a trichome. If you look at a healthy trichome, it's standing straight at attention, standing up straight.
It looks like a penis at a bus stop. It's just
Yeah, if you want to use that terminology. Yeah. When I look at trichomes, I don't like to think of penises, but for sure. You know, and when you look at a trichome that's been scorched by infrared,
it's
you'll
deformed.
see it's deformed.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the reasons when we did tests against a double-ended bulb and we beat it by 3 to 4% on THC production was simply because the IR of that bulb was damaging the trichomes while the plants were finishing.
I mean, why do you think a lot of guys run their gavitas at 750?
They turn them down because they turn them up. They cook the plant too much. They cook the trichomes away.
Yep.
So on that, we actually have 2 questions. One, is there any UVA or UVB in your fixtures, or put out by your fixtures? And the other one was, I'm sorry, I'll think of the other one once you answer that one.
Well, UVA, there's a small dose. Again, we just put small doses at the bookends, as I call it, just outside of what you can see on a par chart. Or on a lux or lumen, 400 and 700 nanometers, dipping into 300s, a bit of UV to stimulate, and a dipping over 700 to 800 for the IR.
Yeah, we do have supplemental lights that are going to be launched. I mean, if you looked at our YouTube channel, we do have a UVB light bar that's going to be released. Don't quote me on this, but the retail is set to be like $349 around there, $399.
July, I think we're gonna get that one ready.
So yeah, again, just you can via our YouTube channel just to take a look at it, but that's only UVB.
The reason we didn't put a UV fixture together sooner was the paradox of a UV diode is that it was suicidal. It was actually cooking itself and damaging its own substrate whenever it was turned on. It wasn't until we found the right materials in the thing that we could actually make something that works and will last like our other lights, because we didn't want to put out something that you had to replace every 6 months that was not cheap. That's just not fair, So it we were frustrated because Or was on this 2.5 years ago. He was preaching to us we needed to make it, and he was right. But at that time, the stuff wasn't robust enough. It wasn't ready to go. Now we finally figured it out. And there's a couple other curveballs I suspect that this guy right here is going to come out with next year, because we figured out a couple other things that are requiring a lot more research, but look promising on that front. If you use UV, please protect your eyes. You're not going to see it per se, but you're going to feel the pain. UV will destroy your vision in a hurry.
Yeah, a lot of people use UVC in their air handlers. UVC, UVC is great for killing bacteria, germs, PM.
Spores, yeah.
It's great. A lot. So that's another thing that we're hopefully going to come out with.
But you don't want to ever expose your eyes to it, and that's one of the problems we had when we're making this fixture. We're like, well, We know plants need it, in particular the last 2 weeks to really, up the special sauce and the trichome and the THC production. But I don't want to have somebody sue us out of existence because they cooked their eyeballs looking at it.
Yep.
We're actually working with some sunglass manufacturers right now to make special glasses for our lights, and particularly towards when we have the finisher.
Method 7.
Because we want people. I'm down for people growing, and I tell you, I've been growing for a while. Not to date myself, my first foray with peddling cannabis was 41 years ago. It's a good thing that it's moving forward, and I'm psyched to see the results of it, but I'm still wary of what it can do to your eyes.
And would you guys, and that's one thing I would say, if you're working under any grow light, doesn't matter if it's LED, HID, anything, if you're working under it all like long term, either in the industry or you're going to keep it grow indefinitely, definitely consider wearing some eye protection. It will save your eyes in the long run.
And a hat.
Yep, and a hat.
You only have.
Oh yeah, I'm in the garden right now. I've got my Oakleys on.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you have quality lenses that are going to protect your eyes, you'll be fine. But a lot of guys, they just don't. And then, like I told you, that I used to be squinty so much that people had no idea what color my eyes were because they'd never seen them. Because I was always walking around, with my eyes basically closed because I had migraine from the bulbs and from being around them. What I learned as I got older is that it's not the reds from the HPSs that really do permanent damage. It's actually the blues from metal halides that really screw your eyes up.
Yep, I've also noticed with some of the other LEDs on the product on the market with the different color diodes can definitely be pretty brutal on your eyes.
Yes,
you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. Do you want to talk about the proper distance between your different lights and the plants?
Sure. Yeah. I guess I'll go from the top down. The SK600, can veg a pretty good sized area by itself. You can do an 8x8 really easily, as long as you have the vertical space in the room to put it 4 feet or so above the plant canopy. In flower, you can bring it down to 30 inches above the canopy. Some strains, you could be a couple inches closer, depending on the strain, if it's light hungry or not. Sensitive strains would be a few inches higher. So the SK600 can cover up to a 5x5 area at 30 inches over the plant canopy. Stepping down to the next level, we have the 400 plus, 2 reflector options. The 400 plus with a 90-degree reflector, you can have that again 3.5 feet above the plant canopy to veg, up to about an 8-foot circle, 7 foot really, and then 18 inches above the plant canopy during flower to get your standard 4-foot tray. That's for taller plants with higher ceilings. And above 8-foot ceilings, preferably you'd want to use the 400 plus 90 if you're using a 4x4 tray. The 400 plus 120-degree reflector is made for lower ceilings and shorter plants. Still dealing with a 4x4 area in flower, and you can get light will go a bit wider, but you'd veg like a 6x6 with it if you had it 3 feet over the top. Then stepping down to the closet case. The closet case is basically if you're doing your one light from seed to harvest, you'd have it 2 feet over your seedlings. You'd have it 18 inches over your veg state plants. Then you'd let down to about a foot during flower, maybe a little closer. We've had one guy who raised his plants right into the light, which I wouldn't recommend, but it was still, the buds were okay despite the fact this guy was a knucklehead.
Yeah, I mean, when I first used the closet case, I found that my sweet spot was around 16, 15 inches. Again, every strain is different. Mm-hmm. You have to look at the plants, the leaves. The leaves will tell you everything. If they're standing up straight, if they're not tacoing, don't change a thing.
If they're high-fiving the room, leave it alone.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we actually have Fish Ganj guy with us who's been running a side-by-side, and he'd love to talk to you about that. That's actually who was asking some of the questions earlier. So I'm gonna let you guys take the floor here and let him talk about that. He's gonna turn his camera on in a second and broadcast that, and then you guys can talk about that a little bit.
Hey guys, so everything is going great in the side-by-side, despite my efforts to destroy everything. As Orr knows, I had a little lately. Turns out
yes, sir.
Aerated teas were anaerobic up until about a week ago.
No, don't breed that.
Yeah,
no
one needs to know.
And for anybody who hasn't seen what a Spectrum King garden looks like, can you make sure the camera's not on me? Yep. And they're just sugar coated.
That's when that word came out of my mouth, the tricholiciousness, because I was trying to figure out a way to describe it, and I couldn't, and that came out of my head.
Is your mic? Is your camera on?
Going in here, man. It'd be fantastic.
Is your camera on? I'm not seeing anything.
But, I mean,
I'm not seeing, but I'm having trouble hearing him too.
Yeah,
He's
he's.
got great nodes stacking on with these, and just everything's looking beautiful.
There we go. Now it's working. I got him up.
Oh, no, went away.
Oh, is he still there? I can't hear him either.
Yeah, I guess
here?
he's not getting very good connection where he is in the garden. It's them ballasts
Yeah,
from the other lights, not yours.
that'd be true. We don't have any ballast.
Exactly.
We have
Yeah,
drivers.
I can see some ballast lines on Marty's screen.
Yep. Yeah, these are they're old 400 watt. Oops, am I mute? No, okay, good. Yeah, they're old 400 watt metal halide ballast, so they're magnetic ballast, and then
Sure.
I have conversion bulbs in them, so they're running ceramic metal halide bulbs.
Okay.
Or lamps, I guess.
You know, you will actually see that in some LEDs. You actually can see it in some of ours, the MLH and CC100, the driverless versions, because it's off AC technology. You know, running straight off the wall. There's no power supply. There's no driver. There's, you know, ICs on the board itself that pretty much filter the voltage coming in. And the lines that you're seeing is actually the frequency of the power coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What we're seeing on his screen there.
yeah, same exact thing.
Back in the day, you used to try to take pictures of your grow. It was always so frustrating because you had to like wait for that millisecond between cycles to try to capture the clean
Some
frame.
guy tried to return his light because of that. He couldn't take pictures of his plants. He was
Oh
like,
man, that was ridiculous. That was funny. Yeah. Sorry we got off that tangent, but just seeing your picture in the background with the hertz cycles going through the frame just reminded us of that, the driverless lights. Yeah.
So I know he's been doing a side-by-side, and I know there was another. Did you want to talk more about that fish ganja guy?
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys again for giving me the go-ahead and being supportive of doing it. Being able to do this side-by-side between two exciting companies. The difference that the spectrums have, it's just been really impressive to me as far as the vegetative growth, the lushness of the canopy on one side. And, I can't wait to taste the difference in the flavors and get the lab testing done at the end to really see the spectrum light compared to the Phytomax spectrum from Black Dog really brings out in the plant.
That's what's when at the beginning when I said I wanted to invent smell-o-vision, because when we first did those tests and people would come in, they were just saying what a difference in the just touch plant smell, touch plant, touch a bud smell. It's just such a difference. Even Stevie Wonder would tell you which one's better. And under those other lights, you see difference in the plant phenotype expression, the bud stacking, spacing, etc.
Yeah, you do. It's let me give you an example. Let me get the camera on. I remember you saying it's a little noisy here, but I remember hearing something about the images were coming out a little distorted because of the light that's being projected. But let me show you. This is a strain from Humboldt Cedar Breeder 42. It's called the Titans. So we got some good node stacking right here. Very turfy. There it is over there as well.
I think
your bandwidth is limited,
really
so it's not letting the video come through.
Yeah, there we go. We got a picture.
You did? Lucky you.
It did for a second.
I wish you guys could see that. I feel horrible that it's not.
Why don't you do a short YouTube video to go with this episode or something?
Can you post a clip tonight? That'd be awesome.
And actually, on that note, Marty was talking about the YouTube channel for Spectrum King. If you guys go to the description, there's a link to both their website and to their YouTube. If you're, on that note.
What I would say is that we have plenty of things on our own channel, but.
And or I'll go ahead and send it over in just a little bit.
Okay.
Yep, and if you guys are wanting to see the exact thing that he's talking about, you can go to Fish Ganja Guy's channel and see the exact side-by-side. But
Nice.
Marty was touching on some of the other side-by-sides that are available from the Spectrum King site as well.
Yeah, I was saying we have videos on our own channel, but if you just type Spectrum King LED in YouTube, you'll find hundreds of people's clips.
Yeah,
that
also
show.
Instagram. If you go on Instagram, there's a ton.
That's pretty cool. I'm very proud of that because people like to talk about things that work, and they like to bitch about things that don't. But when it comes to gardeners, if they have something that doesn't work, they don't want their friends to know they got something that doesn't work, so they just don't talk about it.
The weirdest thing, it's like people like your lights.
And I'm okay with it because, you know, that's what Nothing Better says that, hey, these things actually work. Maybe the hippie's crazy, but he's telling the truth. That's the only thing I want.
You're crazy, hippie. Go hug a tree.
Yeah, that's Orr's big thing to me lately. He's like, I'll say something, you go hug a tree, hippie. I'm like, okay, fine, if that's how it's going to be. Smoking up there.
Now he put himself on mute.
Steve,
right.
Steve, you're
Oh,
on
I'm
mute.
sorry. I'm sorry. I was talking and didn't have the thing going. So do you guys want to talk about the difference in heat output between the two different lights, or not between your? I mean, as far as your lights versus the other different type of lights that are out there.
Okay, well,
Because you kind of touched on that earlier with the air conditioning costs and the ventilation costs and things.
there's a
I
thing.
can get my infrared gun out right now and tell you exactly what the surface temperature on the leaves are in my garden too, if you'd like.
Sure.
You guys are going over that.
That's totally cool. One of the things I want to clarify about heat production and watts, the engineering formula for heat and for consumption or BTU production is a watt is a watt is a watt. They don't give a shit what it came from. To them, a watt is a watt is a watt. So they say your light uses 650 watts. It's 3.412 BTUs per watt, therefore 2,217 BTUs. That's what the formula says. And the reason bulb manufacturers go with that formula, because it doesn't take into account the secondary production of heat from infrared and radiator effect of cheap aluminum and thin metal. So anyone that's on a commercial scale or a big garden that's grown with double-ended bulb fixtures knows that on paper you're supposed to be able to use 3 per ton of air conditioning, but in reality you can only use 2. According to the engineering formula, you can use 5.4 of our SK600s per ton of AC. We have plenty of people using 6 per ton, and we have these guys with a large facility, they're using 8 per ton and swearing it's working fine. I wouldn't go that far, but they're doing it, they're proving it's working.
Some of my guys got 40 of our SK600s in a room with only 5 tons, got the room up to 100 degrees, and were able to cool it back down easily.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And you know, let's put it this way. Where we're at, we're in LA. You know, we got just our own little test, one of our test gardens. We torture things and play with them. Have a 4-light grow up going here. Everything else, the house, AC units, you know, in the house, for the split, the whole thing. Water, trash, sewer, all electric, all in the same bill. And for every 2 months, I'm paying $365, $375 for everything included on the bill. No one has an effing clue that we have lights going anywhere from, you know, from 12 to 18 hours a day, every day, because they're so efficient. They don't make any noise. It just works.
Yeah, don't you think it's a disservice that when people start calculating, like when it seems like they only care about the power that's consumed by the lights itself instead of the overall grow?
Right.
You know, like when you start spending power to create heat to then spend power again to cool back off.
Vicious cycle.
It's like they don't understand that that's a double, you know what I mean? Like that's working against yourself in 2 different ways. And so
back in the day, if you had a 1,000-watt bulb up, you would count 2,000 watts per tray, like per 4x4 space of what you're actually consuming. It was between the AC, the ventilators, the oscillating fans, and the bulb itself. You were counting 2,000 watts consumption for every 4x4. If you look at our light versus another light, we're saving 45% power. So guys say, you're a liar, you only save 45% power. And I'm like, that's just in the light side. Right. Then on the cooling side, that's where the other 25% is coming from. If you don't believe me, try it. And we have a guy that's he's an extract guy. He grows specific strains for extracts, and his bill was the same for like 6-7 years, like clockwork. He was doing the same thing. Right. We got him to switch over to our lights, and he was not known for being the most expressive, happy person. He's a different human now.
Yeah, I know.
He's a totally different human. You know, big man. He's all friendly and, hey, dudes, come on over. I got to show you something. and he brings out his electric bills and slaps them down. His bill's 1/3 of what it used to be. And now he's 2.5 years deep with us. He's one of our first big guys to take him on. He shows me his electric bills every month and smiles. He goes, his wife's a CPA, which is even funnier. She goes, our retirement funds is totally full now. She's leaving me alone. I can do my thing. I go, well, that's good for you then.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, he was literally.
That's all you can ask for right there.
Yeah, he was like literally the first one ever vegging. What was it, like a 12x6 on a light mover with an SK400?
12. It was 12x4.
It was 12x4
with SK6 XA400, the 400 series, the original,
the first one
on a light mover, was doing it with that and getting the results. I wouldn't recommend it, but he was trying to save power, but then he got to the point where he has just a few 400 pluses, literally just a few of them. He's doing his thing, and his power bill is 1/3 of what it used to be.
All right, guys, got the 9 battery and my little infrared thermometer.
Sure.
I'm going over under the my bed number 1. The assist is maybe about 12 inches away. Things, of course, my tallest peanut being the one that's immediately below the light. Let's go.
What was the temperature?
The surface temperature is.
How much is it? I'm sorry.
That's at about 12 inches away.
How much?
84.5 Fahrenheit.
I'm sorry.
84.5? Is that 84.5 Fahrenheit? Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next up.
Next up, let's go ahead and look at something that's more on the outskirts of the bed.
Sure.
Make sure that I'm actually hitting it. 81.3. Let me just do that one more time with my glasses. I'll make sure I'm actually seeing the red dot. There it is. Let's see. It's about 75 degrees, and that's about 2.5 feet away, and it's pretty lateral just because I had to super crop it. And something that's about 1.5 feet, 20 inches directly below the light. There it is. That's about, let's say, 20 inches directly under the SK400.
So the temperature is pretty stable throughout, nothing too crazy.
No, everything's stable. I'm enjoying it.
Awesome.
My AC bill is definitely not.
That's all we can ask.
Yes. And then let's go over here on the Titans. Biggest one right there. Just about 2 feet off to the side. And it's at a perfect angle, so I know it's getting all the light, and it's at 85 to 86 degrees. Flexing a little bit right there. Let me just check that. Okay. 84 degrees. So yeah, all my plants are staying within just a few degrees of each other.
That's good.
What's your humidity
my
there?
grow room around 85. What was that, sir?
What's your humidity level in there?
Is 51%.
Okay. You would
No,
actually.
he's in flower though. Well, actually, no. He needs to be a little bit
A little
higher.
higher. You need
He
it
needs to
higher.
be higher.
It'll make a big difference for you if you get the humidity up a bit.
Actually, hold on one second. That was on my desktop monitor. The dehumidifier says I'm at 58 right now. So I'm somewhere in the middle between those two.
Okay. Well, you would see a noticeable improvement in the plants if you had your humidity up. If your canopy's 84, 85 degrees, your humidity should be like 75. I know Orr doesn't believe that, so he still wants to be a little more sensitive on the backside. But if you look at the VPD chart, you'll see that it'll make sense after you've been through it a couple times. It just gives you a safe zone.
Keep it that high?
Yep.
Just make sure when your lights go out, that when the temperature goes down, that the humidity goes down
Yeah,
too.
that's what a lot of people.
That's where they screw up.
Yep. And they're like, oh, this VPD chart doesn't work. Well, what were your nighttime humidities?
You know, if your
Plants breathe at night, buddy.
Not quite sure how to set that on my dehumidifier for day and different settings, but
well, how big's the space?
it's a 10 by 12 by 7.
Okay. One of the guys I know, he bought another Craigslist dehu, and he put it on a timer. So when his light's out, he put the other one on daytime timer, the other one on nighttime timer. So dehu number 2 turned on at night at a lower setting.
Okay, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy. Yeah, I mean, for your size room, you know, you can get one for like $80, $90,
Yeah.
easy.
We got lucky. There's
No,
this
I have
dude
a-
that's
I
like
have a
3
small
miles from us
humidifier
that
I can
buys
try and
old
jam in
blow-ups.
here.
What's that?
Humidifier I can try and jam in here.
Nice.
I'll see about working that out in the next day or so. And you said around 70 during the day and drop it back down at night.
Yeah. You basically, if you look up the VPD chart on Google and just mark your sweet spots for lights on, lights off temperatures, it's pretty straightforward.
And I learned something today. All right.
Yeah.
We had one last question for you.
Sure.
What's the difference between a closet case and the Mother's Little Helper? And that's from chat.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned a few times earlier, Mother's Little Helper is more of a 5,000 Kelvin midday sun veg light. It is a veg light. It is not meant for flowering. The closet case is a warmer, more of a mid-afternoon orangey white light, and it's meant for a full cycle, but for flowering smaller plants in a smaller space. Mother's Little Helper will veg up to a 4x4. The closet case will flower up to a 2.5 by 2.5, maybe a little closer to 3 feet, but better in a 2.5 by 2.5 type area. I know they look the same, but they have different uses.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Is there anything else you guys wanted to touch on? I don't want to tie up your whole evening. I know you guys are you guys on the West Coast? I forget exactly where you guys are.
We're West Coast.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to tie up your entire evening, but is there anything else you guys wanted to touch on, or do you guys want to tell people how to find you and everything else? Or
SpectrumKingLED.com, Spectrum King on Facebook, Spectrum King LED on Instagram. If you have questions, comments, concerns, whatever it may be, send an email to sales@SpectrumKingLED.com. I call them the whatabouts, because what about this, what about that? I'd rather you ask and we answer than you have a bad experience and get mad. Whether it's with our light or with somebody else's, you want to have the right information to succeed with your investment. That's what we want people to succeed. We want to make sure you go through the step and get the results you're dreaming of.
Don't crash your Ferrari. We want to teach you how to drive it.
Exactly.
We'll teach you how to take it out of first gear, baby.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. You answered so many questions about, why LEDs are really the way to go, especially if you're looking, long-term investment wise. And
it's just stability. It's almost like the set it and forget it thing. You got it up there, you stop worrying about it. It's not like you have to, is that bulb need to be changed? Is that thing going bad? It just works.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate you guys coming on the show. And thanks a lot. If anyone's looking for the links, there's links in the description if you want to check them out.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
And I'll get you guys that video in just a little bit, or.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
See ya.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Sorry again, I came a little late, you guys. Hi, Marty. Hi, Brain. Hi, Steve.
Yo, yo, yo.
That was one of the best interviews we've had so far on the show. I really appreciate them taking the time to get on the show. It took three attempts, but we got it. And man, was it worth it. So I really appreciate them coming on the show.
Charm.
Yep. Marty, do you want to talk to us about the new clusterfuck in Oregon again? And what's new with you?
Oh, yeah. So this isn't really new news, I guess, for Oregon. But they're drumming it up again because a little piece of it got approved and basically, or took effect, I guess. But essentially, they're separating recreational dispensary licensing from medical dispensary licensing. So you can be one or the other, or you can be both, but they both cost money separately. And a lot of dispensaries are basically saying, fuck it, I'm just going to go recreational because that's where the huge market is. And I can just get high THC weed from anybody. And so essentially patients are getting screwed and small growers are getting screwed because they can't move their product. They've already had their regulations up so that they can't have nearly as many plants, specific zoning in order to be able to get approved. And here in Jackson County has been a huge just a huge fucking problem with the county because they agreed to grandfather in existing grows and collected $1,500 fees from a whole bunch of people to process their applications, and basically haven't approved any of them. And a bunch of them are still going back to appeal anyway. And so it's, and every county can essentially do the same thing and sort of use that for a roadmap to go county by county, make that happen. So basically, you know, the small growers that essentially had to risk everything in order to get a medical program, have a medical program, get straight up medication to patients, like with no infrastructure at all. So, you know, they're sort of getting walked on in terms of, you know, paving the way for recreational grow, and it becoming a problem for, you know, them to not be able to sell to recreational grows if you don't have recreational dispensaries, because you don't have licensing for that. So as the medical market shrinks, you know, we're seeing less patients get registered because a lot of people are just saying, well, why don't I just go to the dispensary and buy it from there? I can get an ounce at a time if I want to, and you know, that's enough for what I need. So you're seeing funding drop for the medical program, and you're seeing less and less, you know, sort of smaller, what you call them, like sort of more of your craft cannabis market disappearing, and the people that are growing things and crossing things that are specifically for patients, or making specific edibles for patients that are, you know, they're doing the Charlotte Webs, and they're doing the high CBD strains, or the 1-to-1s, or the 1.5-to-1s, or the half-to-1s, you know, all those different ratios that are more effective for things like seizures, or you know, MS, or you know, all kinds of different things that people use them for. So the availability of those is going down, and the cost is going up, not only for the patient themselves, but just for the dispensary to be able to offer it. So, you know, basically all of those different variables in the same thing, which is that it's not good for patients, and it's not good for small growers, and it's good for recreational growers. So I know, you know, the news has been up in arms about it lately, but you know, this isn't really a new thing. And if you remember back about, I want to say like 2 or 3 months or so, and we can even check in the podcast and see when we talked about it last time, but when a lot of this was decided on, or was being discussed, was when the a lot of the council members were just straight walking out of meetings, and not, you know, they would sit and hear a little bit of it until they got tired of it, and just walk out, and then they would, you know, you'd have like 9 people deciding for an entire county without even hearing what people had to say about it. And so it's definitely been a clusterfuck, and that's just like, you know, that's numerous counties that, you know, had people get frustrated and leave. I know that happened here in Jackson County, and you know, it made the news and different stuff. There's, you know, clips of it. People had their own posts about it. I know here we have the Right to Grow group here in Oregon, which is, you know, organized a couple lawsuits, which haven't really been successful in doing anything yet, but they're at least challenging and taking them to court in various places. And you know, I want to have a positive attitude about it, but they just haven't had any success, because anytime they get any kind of trial or anything, it's basically just the government checking on the government and deciding everything is fine. So, you know, they don't really care if it's, you know, unconstitutional, or, you know, even against Oregon law to interpret it, some of the stuff that they did in terms of like farm use and all kinds of other stuff, which is all led to where we're at now, which is, you know, it's not a good place for the medical at all, which we've seen basically the same thing happen in Washington with some different variables, but, you know, recreational coming about in legislation that gives them the ability to control on a county by county level how much you can grow whether or not you can grow it outside, who you can sell it to, whether or not you can sell it at all. You know, some counties, they've banned it altogether. So like Klamath County, you can't grow anything essentially. You can grow your 4 recreational plants inside. That's about the only thing that they can't take away from you. But there's no dispensaries there. You can't sell it to a dispensary. None of that. So that's kind of the clusterfuck that is the Oregon medical program right now. And like I said, it's back in the news again because of this distinction in dispensaries of what's medical and what's recreational, and that it costs a dispensary money to be a medical dispensary in addition to being recreational. And I'm not sure how we got to this point without so many people knowing that that's what we were debating about for so long. And that's, I guess that's kind of been the theme over and over again. It's like you have a bunch of people that show up at meetings and want to say stuff, nobody wants to listen, and then when it comes about, everybody's really surprised. And it's a frustrating process, and I hope California doesn't do the same thing. But their legislation doesn't seem to be set up any better. So I think it's going to be difficult to avoid that. But I hope that they do a better job of maintaining medical than we've done here, because it hasn't been good and doesn't look good either.
Absolutely, and this goes back to the whole don't blindly vote for a legalization bill.
Right, and so Oregon, I feel like they tried to, and it was basically, and I don't know if it was on purpose or whatever else, but that one little piece in there about defining cannabis as a farm use crop allowed them to then legislate on the county or even city level, putting regulations on farm use crops, as opposed to just regulating cannabis specifically. So now they can limit the number of plants that you can have if you're not in a designated farm use area. So like in Jackson County, the way they do it is all by zoning. So if you're zoned anything residential, so even if you're zoned rural residential, you could have acres of property where you would want to be able to grow outside and not be able to because you're zoned improperly. You're zoned as rural residential as opposed to exclusive farm use. And your next door neighbor could have been zoned 5 years earlier and happened to get exclusive farm use, and they're able to grow. So that's the case here. Is right over my back fence there's EFU property, but I'm zoned residential here, so I'm not able to grow outside this year.
Which is completely ridiculous, because there's absolutely no reason for any of this.
And it's all smell ordinances. So that's basically the precedence, is that my neighbor needs a safe place for his nose.
Yeah, it's just fucking ridiculous. And it's for people that don't live in a legal state yet. Make sure that first of all you get a constitutional amendment. Second of all, make sure that local townships cannot regulate and ban you from using your own medicine and growing your own plants. This is fucking ridiculous. You can brew beer, you can do wine, you can do spirits even up to a certain gallonage, and it's perfectly legal. Why the hell can't I grow plants? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's extremely frustrating, and I definitely feel like it needs to change, and they've been sued over it, and it was even deemed unconstitutional under Oregon law that the way that they were interpreting it was against the intention of the legislation, and so, but I guess there were people that pointed it out beforehand that it really didn't need to be in there, that there was really no reason for them to define it as a farm use crop. So they're beginning with why they couldn't take it out when they were notified. Seems a little suspect to me, and it definitely it did a lot of things. I've talked about this on the podcast before. It made EFU property here in Jackson County extremely valuable. So anybody who had a lot of EFU property or was related to somebody who had a lot of EFU property in Jackson County made serious amounts of money just by their property value going up because it was EFU, and properties are getting bought up left and right here in Oregon, or in pretty much any legal state. But right now, specifically Oregon, the real estate market is gone crazy. My neighbor put their house on the market, and they had offers within like 4 days. Multiple offers, sold their house within 2 weeks, and, entered escrow, I guess, accepted an offer within 2 weeks, and sold their place. And that's been the one I've heard from a lot of different people. So property values have definitely gone through the roof, which kind of blows a hole in a lot of the argument that they have for a lot of or I guess what their basis is really for it is that property values will go down because people won't want to buy the property if somebody's growing weed next door. And that's, it's pretty much been the opposite effect, actually. If people are growing weed next door, odds are they paid a good amount of money for it, which increases your property value. It has the opposite effect. So it just goes to show you, again, it doesn't matter what's actually happening in front of their faces. They generally just care about what their own narratives are. And it becomes disturbing, really, because they can just straight up lie and say that they create this imagined world where somebody that was going to come by their house now isn't going to come by their house because they saw a weed plant next door, or they maybe smelled weed when they got out, or who knows. But it just seems like such a fantasy to me that I don't even know how to I don't know how to logic with you, buddy. It just doesn't process for me, especially when you can look at the actual property value and say, look, after all these weed growers moved in through the roof. That's I don't understand how they argue with the fact of that, but they always go back to the same thing, which is, oh, well, it still doesn't matter. If somebody doesn't want to live next door to weed grow, they're not going to buy the property. And so I guess I don't understand why they care. If there's 5 other people that are lined up to buy the property that will grow weed on it, then your property value is still going up, and that's still what's actually happening. But no matter what, meeting after meeting and council meeting after council meeting, it's the same narrative over and over again. My property value is going to go down because my neighbor grows weed, and I got to protect my kids from the other imagined slights of cannabis.
And it's completely ridiculous. Like, again, there's no other market that's restricted the way that we are, and has to go through even half the licensing bullshit that we have to, and have to go through, like, even just to transport it to retail is a hassle now, both in California and in Oregon. So it's totally psychotic. They've gotten completely out of control with the regulation and taxation, and it needs to be brought into some symbol of sanity.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where we go from here in terms of like the Oregon medical program. There's not a lot of options like that are at least even on the table. I haven't even really seen anything aside from the press about these most recent changes taking effect, and more recreational growers, or not recreational growers, but recreational dispensaries only instead of medical also. It has really brought more attention to it, but it's really the same old thing that they've been doing since legalization happened, which is taking advantage of that one thing that they put in there to put in regulations based on a county level, because then you can take it from a vote from the entire state, and you can put it down into the vote of 9 people, which is a lot easier to sway that vote. And it doesn't really matter if they go against what the public wants. We have to wait to vote them out. Whether we do that through, something like an impeachment. I think they have a different name for it, for the process, but essentially like an impeachment to take them out of office, or we wait till their term is up and vote somebody else in. So, if anybody is in a state right now that doesn't yet have recreational, pay attention to who's on your board now, because that's going to be extremely important moving forward. If you can replace as many of them as you can with pro-cannabis people before that war ever hits your door, it's just going to help you out. I wish I would have known more about the local candidates before, and if they weren't good enough, I encouraged somebody else to run, and that's what ended up happening here afterwards. We found pro-cannabis people that were willing to run, and started taking a look at those seats on the board. But obviously, if I knew then what I know now, I would want to start doing that as soon as possible. So, to anybody that, if your state is considering legalization, even medical, that you don't have now, be aware of those city and county council members, because those are going to be like the last sort of line of defense. This regulation that will come in and change, or even just limit growth in your area.
Absolutely. And there was another thing. There's some group called Smart Colorado. That's it. I want to call these assholes out. So they're advocating for a maximum potency law in Colorado, and they want to limit potency. I'm trying to find it here in this article. I can't find it exactly where they want to limit, but they want to limit the potency of cannabis to like below 20%, which is fucking ridiculous. That would mean no concentrates, no shatter, no, anything else that's,
No fun.
a concentrate. Yeah, no fun. Like, how am I supposed to get high off that? So they're pushing really hard for that. And they're claiming that there's been an increase in ER visits, mostly from out-of-state people that aren't used to it. Anyone that's been to Denver Cannabis Cup knows there's the alleyway between the two buildings where they generally host the cup, where it ends up being just like an alleyway of passed out-of-staters that don't know, they're not used to concentrates, which is always funny, but, concerning. Well, again, it's not lethal. No one's ever died, forget the opioids that kill 64,000 people a year. Forget the alcohol that kills 40,000 people per year. We're gonna go after the weed that hasn't killed anybody.
Just tell them you're drunk. Okay. Then no
Yeah,
one cares, right?
here, this is an exact quote from Smart Colorado. I'm here to tell you a dab is crack weed, and it will ruin your brains, she said. There are stronger options on both sides of this, strong opinions on both sides of this issue, but they do not agree that pot, no matter how potent, should be in the hands of kids. Or they do agree that pot should never be in the hands of kids, which we can all agree. Children should not be smoking weed unless they have, well, not smoking, but unless they have a seizure disorder or cancer. Children should not be on weed.
They should not be using recreational.
Yeah. Well, you know what they do in Jamaica? So in Jamaica, they take all the stems of all the cannabis plants, what the parents smoke, and they put it in tea with honey or a sweetener, and then they call it bush tea, and they give it to the kids to make them pass out at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon when mom needs to like get some laundry done or, have the milk ran over or whatever.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it works great. I've watched them. It's funny. Anyways, I love Jamaica. They have childcare down to a science. Anyways, I don't recommend doing that at home. Don't get me wrong, but it is funny to that different parts of the world have very different views on this particular plant and how it should be utilized on a regular basis. But yeah, this is ridiculous. These Smart Colorado people. The only people I know who use that stuff are people that have such high levels of tolerance that other forms don't work. What I would tell parents that high potency cannabis is the same thing about low potency cannabis. Keep it away from your children. Yeah, no shit. Like, this lady is just another scaremonger, and let's not forget that the governor of Colorado has a huge financial investment in 4 different breweries and 3 tap houses. So who do you think he's going to back when one of those is going to hurt his bottom line, which is often not brought up enough. Hickenlooper also called in the dogs and protesters at Occupy and other protests, and also brought a whole bunch of fraudulent charges against protesters too. So, remember who these people are when they're preaching bullshit. How's your grow going, Fish Ganja guy?
It's going great. I'm transplanting some little Afghanimals right now because I'm going to be running a few more phenotypes of that monster next round. And I got about another week until I can start cutting a couple dozen clones to gender test everything going in next round and make some room in my mother tent. And let me put it on video real quick, see if it actually goes through for once, because I've got everything under Mother's Little Helper because
I haven't seen your video work yet, so I don't know if it's coming through or not for anybody else.
I've only seen a slideshow. I think you have no Wi-Fi in your grow. We'll have to. Yeah, we can't even hear you at the moment, unfortunately.
Am I available to you?
No luck.
Not video.
I can't even hear him at this point.
Yeah, I can't hear him either. Alrighty, we'll figure out what happened to him. Marty, do you have any other updates from your grow?
Well, you guys can check out, I have a video on the praying mantis egg that hatched. So one of my 3 praying mantis eggs hatched, and they're running around here. And so I took a video of that shortly after they hatched. And I only see a couple hanging out right now, but there's quite a few of them running around. It's kind of cool to watch them fight each other and shit like that. So besides that, I don't really have too much going on. These are about.
Do you bet on them?
What are they? About
pit them against each other and.
Yeah, they're about 4 weeks in the flower, and so these 2 are the same, like I talked about before. I think these 2 plants here are the same strain. They're Oregon Blackberry by Peach Frost, and this one over here next to it, I don't know if you guys can see that or not, over this way, it's not as far. I mean, they both started at the same time, but this one definitely stretched more and didn't start flowering as fast. And so definitely strain specific, but it's definitely looking healthy and coming along. It was smaller before, so it grew up over the top of the other one, so definitely veg longer. And then I have a sour strawberry back there in the corner. And some mite bedding I have there to release some thripe predators. But here, let me see if I can get this a little closer. You guys can check out the difference here that I was telling you about. You can see there's one. So even though they started at the same time, quite a bit different in terms of structure already. But going pretty well over there. Those are the sips, and feed those with aquaponic water. Dates on those, and other than that, just kind of on cruise control. I have not, in addition to the mantis running around, I have some baby lace wings. I have a whole bunch of these little tabs set up on here, and they've been hatching for the last couple days or so. And I release those about once a week if I have. Right now I'm fighting thrips, and I just have a few larvae crawling around still. I haven't seen any in adults in a while, so they're definitely knocking them down. And so I'll probably release some more of those coming up soon. But other than that, kind of on cruise control.
Awesome. Brian Grow, do you want to tell us what you got going on this week?
Yeah, pretty much for the past couple days, I've just been working on biochar, just making biochar for my new bed. I went ahead and ordered some clay pebbles and grow stones to mix in with that. And I went ahead and ordered another little cheapo Amazon $80 light for that system as well. So I'm working on getting that thing together. Hopefully by Monday or so, it'll all come together. I have the walls to build around the thing also.
Make sure that you do, no more than about 25% the grow stone. The grow stone is pretty high in silica, and it will raise your pH. But it's good because it leaches silica all the time. So it's plant beneficial in that regard. You just don't want to use it as your only media.
All right, right on, right on. I wasn't aware of that.
Yep.
But and then also I'm working on trying to get a little outdoor aquaponic system set up so I can grow me some greens and lettuces and whatnot. Maybe try some dual root zone tomatoes or something like that outside as well. So I got one 250-gallon IBC tote, and I figured I'm gonna probably go with go ahead and get another one. That way I can have like a sump and fish tank system going on. And then I'm not too sure what I want to do about the grow beds yet. I know I don't want to spend money on buying grow beds. I was thinking about the liner that Marty uses. I couldn't exactly. I don't remember what that was called though. I was looking up like Ultra Scrim or Dura Scrim or something like that, and I just couldn't really find it. So that's one thing that I would definitely be interested in. It seems like an easier route to go to simply build out your grow beds to the size that you want them, yeah. and then just hit them with that liner, So that's what I'm hoping to get done with that. Yesterday,
Grim.
What's that?
So it's called Durascrim liner.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
If you
cool.
Google it up, you should get. There's a couple of different places to carry. Actually, Aquaponic stores carries it. I think True Aquaponic store carries it now too, in smaller.
All right.
I would use.
But
True
I got
Aquaponic.
mine from the website. I'll throw up the link to it here too. But it's called globalplasticsheeting.com.
All right.
Good too.
Cool beans. And then yesterday,
True Aquaponics has it pretty cheap as well. He also has Ultra Scrim as well.
Ultra Scrim. All right. Is that like a similar product?
Yeah, they're kind of 6 and 1/2 dozen in the other.
All right. Cool beans. Yeah, and then pretty much the only other thing I've been working on, I transplanted another plant into the flowering side yesterday. So that pretty much gives me a 2-week stagger with my harvest, or somewhere around there, because I've kind of discovered that the CBD strain that I'm growing really picks up on the terpenes around week 9 and 10. So like it's pegged as a 8-week strain, but like I said, I'm really definitely enjoying the effects of it better with letting it go an extra 1.5 to 2 weeks or so. So it kind of, I don't know, it's staggered. It's staggered fairly well, at least for my style or whatever. So I'm getting that back on track finally. And then I have another plant that really needs to go into flowering, but I don't really have any room because one of the last plants I put in there was a big old CBD mother, and she's taken up like half of my canopy. So I'm going to have to wait to harvest that thing out of there before I can move some more plants in, I guess.
Yeah, it's good.
But yeah,
Problem to
that's
have though, too many plants.
right.
Hey, if you look in the chat on the YouTube, I put up the link for that miner for you.
Okay, awesome. Definitely appreciate that, because I was on the hunt for that today, actually. I'm kind of just trying to price things out right now, for the outdoor aquaponics system, because I'm really looking forward to starting that out. I feel like I need to try my hand out some outdoor aquaponics,
Yeah, I'm honestly really, I'm really missing it. Not setting up for it this year and all that stuff. It's sort of
Oh, really?
been kind of a downer, yeah. All my buddies are setting up all their plants outside, and I'm like, oh man, I want to buy some clones. They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. But it's still lame because, you know, like, I mean, it's nice because I do like the sort of the repetition of the indoor environment and sort of getting used to doing that. So, you know, like, I'm not upset about that part of it, but man, it's nice to just throw out some plants in the sun and,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
keep the water cool. And,
Yep.
you know, it's,
Yeah.
I've done it the last couple of years and sort of had it down to, you know, to what I wanted to do and take it to a little bit more, but gonna have to move first. So that's kind of the plan now, is to find a new spot.
Cool, cool. Well, that's a little bit of a bummer, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of a downer, but yeah, dude, do some outdoor, even if it's for food. Like all my the system I can't use anymore, I put a bunch of berry plants in. So, you know, I've got and then I always grow greens and stuff in them anyway, and you'll produce a ton of food to be able
Right.
to, you know, just have really good food for your family. Even if nothing else, it'll save you money. But you know, most people don't spend a ton of money on greens. But and I feel like we're all healthier. We, you know, I don't feel like we got sick nearly as often since we started eating aquaponic food, especially on a regular basis. You know, where we eat greens pretty much every night, whether we're talking about just lettuce or chard or spinach or any of those things. You know, I feel like it makes a big difference, and you can just consume nitrogen out of your flower systems and eat it basically. So
Right.
that's kind of what I go with. Buckwheat is another one that I really enjoy too. So
Cool beans, cool beans.
check that out.
And then outdoors, one thing I've noticed too is it's not just the insects you have to watch out for. You have to look at other pests too. Like whenever I've grown my honeydew melons, about 3 days before I usually decide to pull it because I think it's ripe, I find a little quarter-size hole in it from a rat, and the whole thing cored out.
Oh,
And that's-
man.
Yeah, or birds
gotta
too.
keep an eye on it. It's
Birds
so
love to swoop
frustrating.
in and just peck
Oh, man.
melons, and they'll peck a little hole in it and just eat juice out of it.
Yeah, so spider mites aren't your only problem anymore once you go into the outside.
What you do is you dump a little cayenne pepper or paprika on the outside, because you don't even eat the outside, and it keeps them off of there.
And when Marty was talking about feeding family, it jogged my memory real quick. Totally forgot, Marty. Did you have your new kid?
Nope, still not due till the 10th.
You totally could have
Still in
made
the
the
oven.
I'm holding out for May the 4th because, you know,
Yeah.
May the 4th.
May
All
the
right,
fourth be with you.
that
Okay.
would be great. I have I'm going to be talking down at the I forget the exact name of the conference, but down in Jamaica next year, the 18th, 19th, and 20th. I'm doing a seminar and a workshop. I'll get the details to link that up here in a bit. If my thing dies, my connection dies here. It looks like my phone/modem is on ultra low and not charging as fast as I would hope it would do. So that's why I died. Yeah, definitely check that out. I have a bunch of cool content I've had up on my YouTube. I got queued up on the YouTube. I went out to Ouroboros Farms last week and was teaching a cannabis class, and did a bunch of cool videos about filtration, compost tea brewing, remineralization tanks and how they work, because I have yet to see a good video on that. Also talking about his new high-tech sensors. He's got some pretty cool continuous sensors over there. So definitely check that out. That's kind of something you don't get to see very often. It's kind of on the bleeding edge of what's out there as far as sensor technology. The scanners can actually scan the nutrient values in the plant material and tell you what's going on with the plants, tell you if they're under attack by insects, tell you where in the grow they're under attack, and then tell you where there's nutrient deficiencies just by looking at the plants every 15 seconds with a camera. So it's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty tricked out system. I can't wait to see a system like this on a cannabis grow. I was just drooling when I was out there. I was like, I need one of these sensors for my grow room.
Yeah, they need to stop putting
Yeah,
that shit.
that's
That's what I'm saying.
What's that? I
You
missed
need to
that.
talk to Ken and be like, Ken, I mean, lettuce, really? What's that
He makes
per pound?
he does he does all right with the lettuce, but but yeah, no, yeah, more information coming soon on some of that stuff. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I'm gonna do some videos here soon on how to germinate some seeds. About to crack some stuff. I actually got my hands on the DGC Cup winning strain, which is Brandywine. We're gonna try and get him on the show. We have I've been talking to Mammoth P. We're gonna get them on the show soon. We're gonna have Optic Foliar on the show soon. We have a bunch of really awesome guests. Optic Foliar is gonna talk to us about. He has a new aquaponic specific foliar spray for aquaponics that he's
Get out
about.
Oh shit!
Yeah, top secret stuff that y'all even had a chance to see yet. So we have a bunch of cool guests queued up in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, I have a couple of other cool surprise guests that we're gonna have pop in on the next couple of shows. We're gonna try to do 1 to 2 guests on the show going forward as much as possible. We actually started on time this week, which is like never fucking happens. So that was really awesome too.
What do you mean, we, white man? I was on time for being late.
Oh yeah, but I mean the show started on time, and that's all that matters. Does anybody have any in chat have any questions? It's been a pretty awesome show so far. It's also nice we're doing the episodes are ending up slightly longer, but a little more informative. It's been great with some of the awesome guests we've managed to get on the show. So
Yeah,
Definitely,
actually,
I'm down with longer episodes.
yep. All right. Well, if no one else has anything, does anyone else have anything else they wanted to mention? If not, we'll do the wrap up.
Just that my phone's about to die.
Yeah, so is mine. So let's. I'm at 1%.
Perfect timing, I
Marty wants to
guess.
go. So yeah, let's wrap the show up. So Brian Grow, why don't you tell people how to find you?
All right, I'm on YouTube, BRAYNE space GRO, and then I'm also on Instagram. Oh, same thing, except instead of the space, it's an underscore. And like I said last time, I upload a lot more to Instagram. So that's about it, guys, for me.
Wonderful, thank you. Fish Ganj guy, why don't you tell them how to find you?
I prefer to stay hidden, thank you. No, but if you want to follow what I'm doing, Instagram Fish Ganja Guy, and just look up Fish Ganja Guy on YouTube and follow the side by side, see what I got going.
Awesome. Marty, do you want to tell people how to find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube, which is AP Meds is my channel. So you can check that out. And then we have the Facebook group for the aquaponic cannabis growers. You can search that. And Steve and I moderate that. And somebody else who I can't remember right now. Is it I? How do you say his name? Ion?
Alien.
Alien?
Yeah. Alien.
Close
He's
enough.
a moderator.
Alien Gonzalez?
Anyway.
He's on a bunch of he's a moderator for a bunch of different aquaponic forums, but he's one of the other. He's I think the only other moderator now for aquaponic cannabis growers. Yeah.
Yeah. So check out that Facebook group. You can find us on there. My Patreon, which I upload more stuff to there. That's more like how-to videos and more like grow coaching stuff. So you can check that out. That's patreon.com/apmeds. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Awesome. I want to do a quick shout out to True Aquaponics. He has a lot of different things that you would need for your aquaponics grow. Shout out to Recharge and the Do Grow Show guys. We had a blast out at their cup the other week and regularly help us with guests and other things on the show. The guys are awesome over there. So make sure you go over to realgrowers.com and dogrows.com and support those guys as well. A big shout out to them. And you can check me out on potentponics.com. You can check out the classes that I teach over at ouroborosfarms.com. And potentponics@gmail.com if you want to write a question into the show or leave it in the comments of the video, and we'll try to get to the next episode or answer it ourselves in chat. And check out my channel. I have a bunch of new content that'll be queued up. in regards to compost tea brewing, remineralization, as well as a couple of crop-specific videos and filtration that are all queued up the next week or two. So yeah, check that out. Thanks a lot for watching, and thanks again to the guys from Spectrum King, Orr and Brendan, for coming on the show and answering all those awesome questions that we had. And yeah, it was a really great, really good episode, and I appreciate everyone for joining us. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Laters.
Night, everybody.